The problem was that the entire thing began to feel like the brand had no idea how to distinguish between grief, legacy, movement theater, and personal image management. And then layered over all of this came one of the most important rhetorical patterns in the whole story. It's what Charlie would have wanted. You heard it everywhere. He would have wanted this. He would have wanted her to lead. He would have wanted the work to continue this way. He would have wanted this event. He would have wanted this tone. He would have wanted this posture. And maybe some of that is true. Maybe some of it isn't. That's not even the point. The point is that once the dead founder becomes the justification for every controversial present-day decision, something very unhealthy starts happening. Because ghosts are incredibly easy to control. The dead cannot correct you. They cannot publicly contradict you. They cannot say, actually, no, I did not want that at all. They cannot distinguish between what they believed, what they said in public, what they said in private, and what the surviving leadership now finds convenient to claim on their behalf. The dead founder becomes a ventriloquist dummy. And that is exactly what started to feel so creepy here. Charlie Kirk became not just the absent founder, but the rhetorical puppet through which every current decision could be laundered, and the audience could feel it. That discomfort intensified even more when Erica and others around the brand started telling people not to ask questions. And strategically, this was one of the dumbest moves imaginable. This was a completely unforced error. Because this is not a normal corporate audience conditioned to trust institutions, accept official narratives, and quietly wait for approved information. This is an audience that has been marinated for years in institutional distrust. A movement ecosystem where skepticism is a virtue, where asking questions is a virtue, where digging deeper is a virtue, where not accepting the official story is not some fringe behavior, but often the basic emotional operating system of the audience. Charlie himself built a lot of his appeal inside that world. So when the response to public discomfort and suspicion becomes essentially, stop, don't ask, how dare you, just believe us, you are not merely being emotionally clumsy. You are violating the very instincts that helped build the audience in the first place. You cannot build a movement on suspicion of official narratives and then demand reverent silence when the questions become inconvenient. That is not how this works. And to be fair, people did try to give her grace. Okay? And that part matters. All right? In the aftermath, there was a lot of emotional deference, shock, sympathy, donations, people telling themselves everyone grieves differently, people suppressing their instincts a bit because the thing that had happened was so brutal and public and destabilizing. She had a grace period, a real one. And that makes what happened next even more significant because the backlash did not come from nowhere. It came after a lot of people had already tried to give the situation the benefit of the doubt. Amfest happened. And this is where, in my view, the whole thing really blew open because up to that point, a lot of what people were feeling could still be described as discomfort, unease, something is off energy. Amfest is where it started to look grotesque. The tent, or a recreation of it, becoming a kind of photo booth or symbolic installation where people are taking selfies, like under the actual booth that Charlie died under, or a recreation of the actual booth he died under. The invitation list, including people Charlie had publicly clashed with or criticized. The event tone drifting further from memorial, from respectful, from remembrance, into something like spectacle. Everybody on the internet was talking about how this looked like WWE, again with the pyrotechnics. The now infamous Nicki Minaj assassin remark, which was apparently meant as slang praise and instead landed like someone stomping around in a nightmare. Erica once again stepping into the center of the whole thing with styling and staging that felt less like solemn transition and more like a woman heading up to a brand relaunch through martyr haze. At some point, the memorial aesthetics gave way to something much stranger. Martyr-themed event production. And the audience was not wrong to feel disturbed by that. This was no longer just a widow grieving differently. This was now a CEO presiding over the symbolic use of her dead husband inside a major political brand. That changes the rules. It just does. And then there's the competence question. TPUSA is a 501c3. So when Erica stands on a TPUSA stage at TPUSA's flagship event and says plainly, "We are going to get JD Vance elected," that raises a very basic issue. Does she not know the rules of the organization she's running, or does she think the rules don't apply to her? At a minimum, it suggests she either doesn't understand the compliance rules of her own organization or is reckless enough to ignore them in public. So at a certain point, this stopped being speculation and became an actual institutional fracture. One of TPUSA's largest university chapters, at the University of Arkansas, announced it was dissolving its affiliation with the national organization and rebranding under its own label, Young American Revival. And what matters is not just that they left, it's why they left. This is not random internet gossip. This is not Candace Owens stirring the pot. This is not some troll account farming engagement. This is people inside the broader ecosystem telling you very plainly that they no longer trust what the national brand has become.